Recently, Tim Dillon, the comedian, was on CNN.
Why?
Yeah, it's weird. He's about to do a comedy tour, and so he's kind of like promoting his comedy tour. They basically had an hour-long conversation. It was this younger-ish girl, probably about our age, maybe like late 20s, something like that.
Weirdest collab of 2025.
So today we're going to do a comment reaction and see what we can learn from the comments of Tim Dillon on CNN.
Let's do it.
First one. This is the first time I've ever clicked on a CNN video.
That's true.
Tim Dillon looks like he's teaching his niece how the world works.
Dude, yeah. He does give off big uncle vibes, doesn't he?
He does. CNN interviewing Tim Dillon like he's the vice president to the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah. Even more funny that he was on Joe Rogan right after.
Tim explaining nuance for 71 minutes to someone on heroin.
Oh, God.
That's a little harsh. She didn't seem like she was on heroin. I love that he shamed you guys into airing the entire recording.
That's really?
They weren't going to release it. He goes on Joe Rogan and says,
did they say we can't put the whole hour out? I texted this journalist and she texted me. She goes, I'm pushing for like a long form release. I go, yeah, man, just put out the interview.
And they did it like a week after Rogan.
What was their like hold off on?
I think that's just what CNN does, man. They just like
they just don't do the long
it's just
version.
like a legacy media thing.
That feels weird.
She talks about Rogan like he's a mythical creature.
Yeah, I guess to legacy media people, Joe Rogan is kind of a unicorn, isn't he?
I love how everyone clicked on this for Tim and no one clicked on it for CNN.
Yeah, probably true because that video probably did like super well on YouTube for them.
That's the thing. It's more views than they've gotten in a long time.
Yeah.
Why is she speaking like they're at a sleepover, hiding under a blanket with a flashlight? She was whispering a lot.
What do you think about that?
Why?
I think she just had a really soft voice. I don't know. I think that was her thing.
I mean, nothing against that, but
I know.
She's just like weirdly talking, quiet.
Like, how does that work? Like, what is that like?
This is the longest SNL skit I've ever seen.
You showed me a clip of it. It did kind of feel like something I would see Andy Samberg in.
Year is 2025. CNN is asking Tim Dillon, what's going on in the world right now?
That's so funny. Just the simplicity of that is very funny.
You can tell around the CNN office, the staff talks about Joe Rogan like he's Voldemort.
Yeah, for sure. You know, they're like, this is the man that is threatening our entire way of being.
Yeah, exactly. Very kind of Tim Dillon to share his platform with CNN.
I'm amazed that they dropped the full unedited hour. That's actually kind of dope.
It's cool, yeah. If they start doing raw stuff, people are going to watch it. Yeah.
Dude, especially with people like Tim Dillon, comedy people. Yeah. But honestly, even if it was an uncut thing of like a political candidate, I feel like people might prefer something
Most
like
definitely.
that.
That's what people want. All right, I got one more, and then I'll get into a couple points. Her condescending face, her only redeeming factor is that she had CNN put out the entire interview unedited. A little mean. So, legacy media's kind of been dying for a while.
It's also been the conversation, though, for the last like 10 years that legacy media has been dying, and maybe their pockets are just so deep that they just like, it's just a very long death.
And on top of that, you know, obviously like comedians have been just like blowing up the podcast world. One of them in that circle is Andrew Schultz. On his show reacted to Tim Dillon being on CNN.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's a really good point is he said,
these are my least favorite type of interviews.
Yeah.
Where there's a lack of curiosity, where it's like, this is how I feel about the world. And I'm going to ask you questions that will confirm my belief about the world. Instead of, this is how I feel about the world. Am I off for thinking about this? I'm around somebody who like has in-depth knowledge about this stuff. Tell me if maybe I'm wrong, and maybe tell me if I should change my opinion on it. So it's a lack of curiosity.
I think this girl on CNN was fine. Like, people were kind of hard on her, but you could still see that she was coming at this interview
with a point
that she was trying to get to, a motivation, trying to understand if these podcasts are the new establishment. Like, she came in, as opposed to like one of these comedian podcasts being curious and wanting to hear the other person,
or even a non-comedian podcast like Modern Wisdom. Chris Williamson, I think, is probably one of the best interviewers
for sure
of our generation of like interviewers, and he does a really good job of having like questions prepared, but also being free to just like let the conversation guide itself.
I think in this scenario, because it's Tim Dillon, we're kind of talking about this ring of comedians, but it's true for the podcast world.
Yeah.
They're authentic, and a lot of it is people like to listen to it just because it's like legit people who are just curious.
Most people listen to bigger podcasts like that because ultimately they like the interviewer that asks good questions. They like that, you know, they're not the same questions that they're just going to get doing any kind of other panel or doing a CNN interview.
So to wrap this up, basically it's just that people want to listen to genuine conversations. You can see it's CNN's video, but all the comments are basically rooting for Tim Dillon or joking about it or something like that.
That's
like
really funny.
Everyone that watched that,
We're Tim Dillon fans.
They weren't CNN audience. So if based on these comments, it really is like that was a good move for CNN. And I think it was cool that they did that. But if they want to compete with these podcasts, they've got to have authentic, real conversations. And it can't always be so pointed. They might. It's almost like we need this resurgence of like honest journalism. Just hearing from the source, letting them talk, instead of always having to like present facts without having an angle.
Sure. And I don't think that's necessarily a problem with, because I think professional podcasters will always say you go in with an idea of what the conversation is going to be about in mind, which is, there's not a problem. I think legacy media is really, really good at that, obviously to a fault. But at the same time, being able to take the conversation and be flexible and move in other directions and naturally get to where the conversation needs to go, that's a skill that only the top podcasters have that is really difficult to hone.
And being a likable person.
Yeah.
And then the final rule, release the whole episode.
Yeah, just always release the whole episode.
Yeah, man. Just put out the interview.
If you want to be like these podcasters, release the whole episode unedited.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely they should always just drop the full hour.
Thanks for watching, guys. We're really starting to find formats that we really like. We're enjoying the comment reaction and the profiles of different people. So, yeah, let us know if you like them and what you want to see next.
Yeah, if you have anybody that you want to see us talk about or profile or you think we should know about, drop it below while you're down there. Subscribe, like, and if you want more of these kind of videos, right over here.
Right over there. Yep.
Do it.
Also, we're on Instagram, TikTok,
Do it.
and Spotify and Apple
Do
Music.
it. Timer's
Apple
almost up.
Podcasts.
Oh no, time's almost up. Do it.